Hi everyone, Brian here, and this is the third of my tarot book review videos. It's very appropriate it's the third because it's actually the third time I've tried to film it, because the first time the camera wasn't set to film, it was set to photo, so I spoke for about 10 minutes staring at the camera and looking at my image on the camera, and then eventually realised that it wasn't filming, it was just the photo that I was looking at. So that was the first time, and then the second time I realised that the microphone wasn't plugged in. So the third time is the charm, I hope. This video is about the pragmatic, practical tarot books that I can recommend to you. But before I do mention some of those, I want to give an honorary mention to Lon Milo DeKett's Understanding Aleister Crowley's Thoth Tarot. I mentioned this because I mentioned it in the intermediate review book because I was talking about Angelise Arian's Tarot Handbook, which uses the Thoth deck but in a very unusual way. Have a look at that video if you want to find out why. This is a much more conventional approach to the Thoth Tarot. It bases itself very much on Aleister Crowley's philosophy of tarot and Kabbalah and magic and so on. Gives a brilliant history of, both the tarot deck itself and also Aleister Crowley and his way of thinking. So it's a great book for that. Really, it should have gone into the intermediate video, but it didn't. So I'm putting it in this one. So on to the practical books. I'll start with the kind of book that really every tarot reader should have in their collection, although I wouldn't necessarily say that this is the best of its kind. This is the complete book of tarot spreads by Evelyn Berger and Johannes Weibig. It's actually the only book dedicated only to spreads that I have. I think I might have one other tucked away in a box somewhere, but this is the one that I've looked at probably most often. It's fairly straightforward and simple. It's got various different kinds of spreads in it. It doesn't go into a great deal of information about how to construct spreads, but it does give you some useful spreads, for example about charting a path to a goal, working out progress, past, present, future, the road to a solution if you've got a problem. It's got spreads for looking at next steps, looking at prioritising and so on. So it's fairly practical and straightforward, and at least it'll give you an idea of the types of different spreads that are available. I would recommend that you do hunt around and see what takes your fancy in terms of tarot spread books, but they're definitely worth having in the collection. So the next books I want to mention, there's actually three of them, although I've only got two here. They're all by the same author, Christina Jett or Jetty. I don't know how you pronounce that, but she is a great tarot author, I think, very practical and pragmatic. This book, Tarot for All Seasons, is about using the tarot to celebrate the Wheel of the Year. So if you are someone who does want to celebrate and mark the Wheel of the Year, but you don't want to get involved in too many elaborate rituals, either as a solo practitioner or in a group, and you would rather use the tarot to just guide you through the Wheel of the Year, and she has different spreads for each of the points on the Wheel of the Year, then this is a great book to have. And I will talk a bit about the Wheel of the Year in a future video, but I wanted to mention this book because it's just so straightforward and so practical, and is well worth a read. Another book by her is called Tarot for the Healing Heart, using inner wisdom to heal body and mind. And just as the name suggests, it's about using the cards and using different spreads and approaches and techniques to tarot to looking at issues of health and healing, and particularly emotional health and healing. There's some really interesting, innovative spreads in here, and quite an interesting discussion of how tarot can engage with one emotionally. So well worth looking out for. And the other book by her that I would recommend, she had one which is about professional tarot reading, which I'm not so familiar with. But the other one I'd recommend, which I have a copy of tucked away somewhere, is called Tarot Shadow Work, which is about using the cards to do exactly that, to work with the shadow, in the Jungian sense of the shadow, dealing with some of the darker parts of oneself and also dealing with some of the darker cards. So well worth looking into any of her books. Another author who produces a number of different practical books, he has a book on how to use the cards in the sense of relationships, looking at relationships, is Mark McElroy, but the book I'm going to recommend is this one, Putting the Tarot to Work. And this is a very interesting, fun book. The subtitle is Creative Problem Solving, Effective Decision Making and Personal Career Planning. And as that suggests, this is about using the tarot in relation to jobs and business. And there are a number of different ways that he does that, ranging all the way from using the tarot to help you chart a path to a satisfying career, using the cards to help you work out what that career might be, but also using the cards to generate ideas in a business setting. Very practical, very pragmatic, and a lot of fun. So highly recommended. And my final book to recommend in this video is a book by someone who I was very pleased to be able to meet in person for the first time earlier this year, although I had previously corresponded with him online, and that's James Wells. I did one of James's online courses several years ago, and thoroughly enjoyed it, and met him when he visited London just a couple of months ago, or maybe even just a month ago. And he is a great tarot teacher, really practical, really down to earth, is very warm and also very clear about how to use the cards in a constructive way. So if you ever have the opportunity to work with James, then I would encourage you to do that. And you can check out his website, which I think is Circle Ways. But if you Google James Wells Tarot, then he'll come up. Lots of great information on there, lots of great articles. And the book that I want to mention is this one, Tarot for Manifestation, using the cards to make your desires a reality. And really this is a very practical book. It's about using the tarot, and it's beautifully illustrated with different decks. The Mother Peace Tarot is in there, as well as the Rider-Waite Tarot. There's exercises like the Happy New Year Mandala, using the cards to look at the year ahead. There's ways of creating affirmations. There's ways of clearing away old stuff. Another deck that's in here is Rachel Pollack's Shining Tribe. So it's a lovely illustrated book, and really in some ways probably the best testament I can give is to read the quote from Mary Greer on the back of the book. And she says, "Tarot for Manifestation by James Wells takes tarot to the next level. The cards become personal tools for getting things done, practically and efficiently. This is applied meaning at its best, discovering specific actions for turning desire into reality. Learn how image can become imagic. Your life will never be the same once you've tried the fun and creative processes in this book." And I couldn't agree more. It's a great book, and is a perfect book to end this video of book recommendations for very practical, down-to-earth, useful tarot books. So Tarot for Manifestation by James Wells. So I hope you enjoyed these reviews, and I'll be back soon, probably with more book reviews and also with my review of the Masonic Tarot. So watch out for that. See you soon.